Hey warriors, stop chasing for a moment. Stop explaining. Stop begging for people to understand who you are, because the truth is they won't. Not all of them, and that's not your failure, that's your freedom. Silence isn't weakness, it's power restrained. It's control mastered. It's the calm before the storm that no one sees coming, because true strength never announces itself. You've spent years trying to prove, trying to explain, trying to convince others that your intentions were pure. But every time you chase validation, you hand your peace to someone who doesn't know its worth. Let the noise go. Let the need to be seen go. Let the desire to be understood dissolve into the quiet. Because in that silence, you begin to remember who you are. You are not the opinions of others. You are not the approval you've been begging for. You are the awareness behind it all, the still observer watching thoughts rise and fall like waves. When you stop running after the world starts to turn toward you. When you stop explaining yourself, you become a mystery, and mystery commands more respect than noise ever will. Listen, the most dangerous person in the room isn't the loudest one. It's the one who can stay silent, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't need to prove anything. That's the person who has mastered himself. That's the person the world can't control. You've been taught that silence is emptiness, but in truth, it's the space where all creation begins. The seed grows in silence. The stars are born in silence. Your greatest transformation happens when no one's watching. So this is where it begins. Your rebirth, your rebuilding, your quiet revolution. You don't need to chase what's already yours. You don't need to beg for the attention of those who never saw your value. You don't need to explain your worth to people who wouldn't understand it if you did. You need only one thing: inner silence. That's where your superpower lives. Breathe. Feel the stillness return. This is your homecoming. The war outside is ended. Now the real work begins within. Next, we go deeper. The premise behind the power of silence. Why chasing destroys you, why begging weakens you, and why explaining dilutes your strength. You've been told your whole life to speak up, to make noise, to prove your worth. But no one tells you that the loudest person in the room is often the most unsure. You see, true power doesn't chase. It doesn't beg. It doesn't explain. Because true power understands. Everything external is temporary. The moment you start chasing approval, you admit you don't have it within. The moment you start begging, you surrender your throne. And the moment you start explaining yourself, you hand your peace over to misunderstanding. Silence is the opposite of that chaos. Silence is sovereignty. It is the still mountain that watches storms come and go, but never moves from its place. It is self-control in a world addicted to reaction. When you chase, you become a slave to what you pursue. When you beg, you become dependent on someone else's permission to exist. When you explain, you validate the misunderstanding that never needed to be addressed. But when you stay silent, you remain in control. You conserve your energy. You preserve your mystery. And most importantly, you keep your power inside you instead of scattering it to the wind. The Stoics called this inner composure ataraxia, a state of unshakable peace. It's not the absence of difficulty, it's the presence of strength in the middle of it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He understood that peace is never found in controlling the world. It's found in mastering your reaction to it. So ask yourself, how many times have you lost your peace trying to explain yourself to someone who already decided not to understand? How many times have you lowered your value trying to convince someone of your worth? Each time you do, you trade your power for noise. You trade your silence for struggle. Silence is not weakness. It's the discipline to know that not everything deserves your voice. It's the awareness that sometimes your energy is too sacred to be spent on reaction. Because reaction is what they want. Control is what you keep. The one who remains calm in chaos, the one who listens more than he speaks, the one who observes rather than argues, that one cannot be manipulated. He cannot be broken. He cannot be moved. You see, silence isn't about not speaking. It's about speaking only when your words carry weight. It's about choosing presence over performance. It's about letting your actions scream louder than explanations ever could. When you stop chasing, you make space for what's meant for you. When you stop begging, you create self-respect. When you stop explaining, you discover inner peace. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. The moment you choose silence, you choose mastery, you choose strength, you choose peace. And that is the central premise. Silence isn't just stillness, it's strategy. It's the invisible armor of the disciplined mind. The world tells you to react, but your power is in restraint. Because restraint is control and control is freedom. You don't need to chase what already belongs to you. You don't need to beg for what you can build. You don't need to explain what time will reveal. Stay silent, stay focused, stay unshaken. Next, we enter the deeper ground, the philosophical foundation. We'll explore how Stoic thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus understood the mind as the fortress, and how neuroscience now proves what they already knew, that silence rewires the brain for mastery. Hey warriors, in every age there have been two kinds of strength: the strength that conquers others and the strength that conquers the self. The first burns out quickly, the second lasts a lifetime. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." He didn't write those words from comfort. He wrote them as an emperor facing betrayal, war, and loss. He had armies under his command, but his greatest victory was over his own mind, because he understood all suffering begins when the mind loses command of itself. When you chase approval, you lose command. When you beg for attention, you surrender your sovereignty. When you explain your worth to those who cannot see it, you step off your throne to argue with the crowd. But the Stoics knew you cannot fight chaos with chaos. You overcome it through order within. And that order is silence. Seneca once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." He knew that silence was not escape, it was training. Every quiet moment is a weight lifted by the soul. Every pause is a repetition of inner strength. The Stoic doesn't avoid struggle. He walks through it with composure. He doesn't shout back at the storm, he becomes the calm inside it. This is the heart of Stoicism. Self-control over self-expression, reason over reaction, presence over performance. And now, centuries later, neuroscience echoes the same truth. In modern psychology, we call it cognitive reframing. In neuroscience, it's neuroplasticity. Your brain is constantly rewiring itself based on what you repeatedly think, say, and feel. When you chase, beg, or over-explain, you're strengthening neural pathways of insecurity, scarcity, and fear. You're literally training your brain to depend on others for peace. But when you choose silence, you rewire your brain for patience, presence, and power. Because silence is the ultimate act of self-trust. It says, "I don't need to prove this. I already know." Viktor Frankl, the great psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, wrote, "Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom." That space he speaks of is silence. It's the pause before the reaction, the breath before the storm, the awareness before the decision. It's not just emptiness. It's the sacred ground where transformation begins. Every time you choose silence instead of reaction, you expand that space. You strengthen your inner architecture. You become the architect of your mind. The Stoics trained daily for this. They practiced premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. They imagined every possible misfortune, not to create fear, but to create calm. Because once you've faced your fears in the mind, the world can't surprise you anymore. They practiced amor fati, the love of fate, to accept not only what happens, but to love it. Because what happens to you is not the enemy, your resistance to it is. Think about it. Every time you overreact, the world controls you. Every time you pause, the world loses its grip. The Stoics knew that silence wasn't passive. It was the ultimate form of action, because it allowed clarity to speak before emotion. And now science proves the same. Mindfulness, breathwork, and stillness activate the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reason and long-term decision-making. Silence literally gives you access to higher consciousness. Your mind is the architect, your thoughts are the blueprints, and your silence is the foundation stone. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes rebellion. It's how you rise above the chaos. It's how you reclaim control from the distractions that own most people's minds. You see, silence is not about retreat. It's about recalibration. It's the art of stepping back to see clearly. It's what allows the Stoic to act from principle, not pressure. From awareness, not impulse. From power, not fear. So here's the truth, warrior. The mind you feed is the life you build. If you feed it with reaction, you'll live in chaos. If you feed it with silence, you'll live in command. Because silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of mastery. And that is the foundation. Philosophy and science united on one truth. Peace begins the moment you stop explaining yourself to the world and start listening to yourself again. Next, we enter the battlefield of emotion, the everyday human struggle, the quiet war within, where failure, loss, doubt, and comparison try to break you, but silence becomes your sword. You wake up, it's early. The world is quiet, but your mind is. There's a storm inside you, thoughts, regrets, the noise of yesterday, people who doubted you, mistakes that haunt you, opportunities you lost, words you wish you never said, and words you wish you had said. The first thing you reach for is your phone, the digital noise. You scroll, compare, react, before you even remember who you are. You see others winning, laughing, living, and you feel that quiet sting of not being enough. That's the moment you lose your peace. Not because the world took it, but because you handed it over to the noise. You go through the day trying to keep up, trying to prove, trying to catch something that keeps moving faster. You speak when silence would have said more. You react when calm would have won. You explain yourself to people who aren't listening. You drain your energy not from work but from trying to be understood. And by night, you collapse into exhaustion not because your body's tired but because your soul is. That's the cycle. That's the trap. That's the prison of reaction. But here, what the world doesn't tell you, the most powerful transformation happens when you stop trying to escape that silence and you enter it. Because silence isn't the enemy, it's the teacher. Imagine this: you wake up tomorrow and instead of rushing, you sit, eyes closed, no phone, no noise, just breath. The mind begins to chatter, it always does. But you don't fight it, you watch it. You observe your thoughts as if they belong to someone else. And slowly the distance grows between you and them. That distance is peace. That distance is control. It's where you realize you are not your thoughts, you are not your emotions, you are not the noise, you are the awareness behind it all. You begin to move differently. You stop reacting to every insult, every opinion, every storm. You become still, and in that stillness you gain something most people never touch: clarity. When they yell, you listen. When they provoke, you smile. When they misunderstand, you stay silent. Not because you're weak, but because you've learned to protect your energy. You've learned that silence speaks louder than defense, that calm destroys chaos, that peace is the most intimidating form of power. You start walking through the same world but differently. You no longer explain your vision, you embody it. You no longer chase validation, you build in silence. You no longer beg to be seen, you let your results speak for you. And when people wonder where you went, they'll find out when you reappear stronger. Because silence doesn't mean you've disappeared, it means you're becoming. The Stoics called this euthymia, a sense of inner direction. The peace that comes from knowing where you're going and not being distracted by the noise of others. They taught that to be calm in the face of insult is not submission, it's mastery. That every reaction is a chain that binds you to weakness. And every act of restraint is a sword that cuts it. You've been through failure before, you've been misunderstood, you've been betrayed, and through it all, your silence saved you. When you held back your words, you discovered your strength. When you didn't chase what left, you made space for what's meant. When you didn't beg for answers, you built yourself instead. That's growth. That's Stoicism in motion. That's evolution in disguise. Silence is not loneliness. It's the birthplace of power. It's where you meet your real self without disguise. It's where you rebuild from ashes. Because the world breaks you down loudly, but you heal quietly. The world humiliates in public, but you rise in private. And that rise, that silent rise, is what will make the world watch in awe later. So the next time you feel lost, the next time you want to shout your worth or chase someone who walked away or explain yourself to someone who refuses to see, pause. Breathe. Remember this truth: what is meant for you cannot be taken. What is true doesn't need convincing, and what's powerful doesn't need to be loud. The noise of the world will keep rising, but the warrior moves differently now. He listens. He observes. He acts from silence, not emotion. He's learned that silence is not empty. It's full of control, of wisdom, of power. That's you now, that's your edge, that's your superpower. Next, we turn the light inward to the reframe. The moment when you stop seeing silence as absence and start seeing it as creation. When you learn to transform chaos into clarity and pain into power. You've faced storms before, moments where everything inside you screamed to react, to defend, to prove, to fight. But deep down, you know that reaction never brought peace. It only chained you to what hurt you. The mind's first instinct is to resist, to fight what it doesn't like. But resistance keeps you trapped in the same loop. Silence is how you break the loop. Because silence is not inaction. It's the most powerful action disguised as stillness. It's the point where you step back from chaos and realize you don't need to control what happens, you only need to control what happens inside you. Epictetus taught this through what he called the dichotomy of control. He said, "Some things are up to us and some are not. Up to us our thoughts, our choices, our actions. Not up to us everything else. And when you stop wasting your energy on what's not up to you, you free your mind to master what is. That's the reframe. That's freedom. When someone disrespects you, you don't need to argue. That's their reflection, not yours. When someone leaves, you don't need to chase. What's meant will never require begging. When the world misunderstands you, you don't need to explain. Truth doesn't need an audience. Every time you hold your silence, you reclaim your power. You shift the story. You rise above the noise. That's not avoidance. That's awareness. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate. To not just accept what happens, but to use it. To see every setback as material for strength. They believe that everything that happens, even the pain, even the loss, is the raw clay from which you shape greatness. Your task isn't to control the clay. Your task is to shape it with intention. Think about it. Every challenge you faced brought you here. Every betrayal taught you to rely on yourself. Every silence from others forced you to listen to your own voice. That's not coincidence, that's evolution. Pain was your teacher. Silence was your classroom. Every time life pushed you into stillness, it wasn't punishing you, it was preparing you. Preparing you to move with calm where others panic. To act from purpose where others react from fear. To stand in silence when the world screams for attention. The reframe is simple but powerful. What if silence isn't absence but alignment? What if the things that left weren't losses but clearings for something better? What if what looks like rejection is actually redirection? When you stop seeing silence as a void, you start seeing it as space, the space where your next version is built. Because silence is where power gathers before it strikes, where strength is sharpened, where the mind returns home. You can't change the wind, but you can adjust the sails. You can't control others, but you can command yourself. And that is mastery. The reframe is remembering that life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. Every situation is training your mind to remain still, to remain wise, to remain powerful in presence. You no longer fight the world. You no longer chase what runs. You no longer beg for what's already yours. You no longer explain your peace. You just are, unmoved, focused, silent, and from that silence you create. This is where you begin to rebuild yourself consciously. The foundation is silence, the walls discipline, the roof perspective. Now it's time to give that structure meaning, to plant the inner truths that guide your every step. 5 Stoic affirmations, 5 pillars that will rewire your mind and turn silence into power. You've come far, warrior, through storms, through silence, through the dark rooms of your own mind. Now it's time to rebuild, to carve new truths into the architecture of your soul. 5 pillars that cannot be shaken even by life itself. Repeat them, feel them, live them. The world will provoke you, people will test you, life will press every button you have. But the moment you react, you hand over your power. The moment you pause, you reclaim it. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." You cannot control what happens, but you can always control your response. When someone insults you, you can stay silent. When the world doubts you, you can smile. When the storm hits, you can breathe. That's not weakness, that's evolution. Because every reaction is a choice, and every choice shapes your character. So today, say it slowly, I choose my response. I will not be moved by the chaos of others. I will not let emotion drive the direction of my life. I respond, not react. That is power, that is peace. Every challenge you face is a mirror showing you where you still have room to rise. Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, adversity tests the brave." So when pain comes, you no longer ask, "Why me?" You ask, "What is this teaching me?" Growth is not found in comfort. It's carved in the difficult moments, in silence, in rejection, in rebuilding. You can curse the challenge or you can use it to grow. Every scar has something sacred written beneath it. You survived. You adapted. You became stronger. Say it, growth lives here. In this pain there is wisdom. In this silence there is strength. In this difficulty there is direction. Every moment is material for greatness. Nothing is wasted. The mind loves to wander into regrets of the past or fears of the future. But power lives only in one place, now. The Stoics woke each morning with gratitude and purpose. Marcus wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to love." You cannot redo yesterday. You cannot control tomorrow. But today you can master your attitude, your focus, your silence. Each sunrise is a blank page. Each breath, a new chance. So stop overthinking what could go wrong. Focus on what you can build right now. Say it, today matters most. Not someday, not when conditions are perfect. Now, this moment is my opportunity. This moment is my life. You don't need to rush. You just need to be here. Because peace isn't found in the next thing, it's found in presence. You've spent years trying to prove yourself, trying to earn worth through achievement, validation, or perfection. But here's the truth, you were already enough the moment you decided to rise. You don't need another person to confirm your value. You don't need another win to justify your existence. You don't need more applause to be at peace. Your worth isn't performance, it's presence. Silence reminds you of this. When you're quiet, you remember that there's nothing missing, nothing broken, nothing lacking. Say it slowly as if every word rewires your soul. I am enough, right now, as I am, flawed but growing, silent but powerful, unseen but unstoppable. Every breath I take is proof I belong here. Every step I take is enough for today. The greatest illusion is that control equals safety. But the more you try to control everything, the more peace slips through your fingers. Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." When you let go, you don't lose control, you gain calm. You stop forcing outcomes. You start trusting process. You stop fighting life. You start flowing with it. Say it, I release control. I trust that what's meant for me will find me. I let go of the need to explain, to chase, to fix. I trust myself to handle what comes, and I trust life to unfold as it should. That's not giving up. That's rising above. These are your 5 pillars. 5 inner commands that rebuild the warrior within you. I choose my response. Growth lives here. Today matters most. I am enough. I release control. Repeat them daily. Live them deliberately, because repetition rewires the mind. Awareness reshapes the brain, and silence anchors the soul. Each time you breathe consciously, you're carving new pathways of strength into your own mind. Each time you choose calm over reaction, you're teaching your body peace. This is not just philosophy. It's neural rewiring, it's spiritual discipline, it's warrior training. Remember, every time you fall silent when you could have reacted, you grow stronger. Every time you choose peace over validation, you grow freer. Every time you let go of control, you grow lighter. And that's what it means to live with Stoic power, to turn silence into your greatest strength. Now we bring it all together, the final integration. How these truths become not just words but a way of life. How silence becomes your daily practice, your meditation, your edge. Hey fighter, you've listened, you've reflected. You've felt the pull between chaos and calm. Now comes the part most people skip, the living, because knowledge doesn't change you, integration does. Every Stoic knew this. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write wisdom, he practiced it daily. Seneca didn't just talk about calm, he trained it through hardship. Epictetus didn't just theorize discipline, he embodied it, even as a slave. They knew that philosophy means nothing unless it becomes habit. Neuroscience now proves what the Stoics lived by: instinct. Your thoughts carve pathways through your brain. Every time you choose silence instead of reaction, you reinforce calm. Every time you choose gratitude over complaint, you strengthen peace. Your mind is plastic, malleable, adaptable, alive. It becomes what you feed it. It becomes what you repeat. You are the sculptor and your daily choices are the chisel. This is not about perfection, it's about practice. Even the smallest consistent act, pausing before you speak, breathing before you judge, observing before you react, rewires your entire nervous system towards strength. This is neuroplasticity in action. This is Stoicism embodied. So each morning, anchor your day with your affirmations. I choose my response. Growth lives here. Today matters most. I am enough. I release control. Say them with intention, not as empty words but as commands to your subconscious. Let them echo in your silence. Let them shape your next decision, because what you repeat, you become. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you but how you react to it that matters." Awareness is that tiny gap between impulse and action, between feeling and choice. That's the space Viktor Frankl spoke about. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That space is your sanctuary. That space is your superpower. When life throws storms your way, stop. Breathe. Feel the energy rise, and in that pause, remember who you are. You are not your emotions. You are not your failures. You are the one who observes them. And from that awareness, you find freedom, because freedom begins in the mind. Silence is not passive, it's active mastery. Every day, find moments to withdraw from the noise. No phone, no scrolling, no performing, just you and your breath. The world will call it boredom. The Stoic calls it returning home. In that stillness, you'll begin to hear your inner voice again, the voice that says, "You are safe. You are strong. You are enough." The more you practice silence, the louder your peace becomes. And the louder your peace, the smaller the chaos of the world feels. You'll begin to notice people who once drained your energy no longer affect you. Situations that once triggered you no longer control you. Why? Because silence has made you sovereign. It's not what you do once in a while that changes you, it's what you do every day. When you rise early, when you journal, when you meditate, when you stay silent instead of proving your point. Each act of discipline reinforces who you are becoming: calm, sharp, grounded. Seneca wrote, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body." Every act of discipline is a repetition of peace under pressure. It's proof that you can hold power quietly, that you can command your emotions without words. You don't need to announce your strength. You just live it calmly, consistently, confidently. That's how Stoics won, not with noise, but with presence. Tomorrow morning, before you touch your phone, sit in silence for 2 minutes. Just breathe. Then whisper your affirmations: "I choose my response. Growth lives here. Today matters most. I am enough. I release control." Repeat them until they live in your bones, until they guide your smallest actions: how you speak, how you walk, how you love. Then go into the world. Let your silence speak for you. Let your peace confuse the noise. Let your self-control command respect without words. That's integration. That's mastery. That's the real you finally awake. This is what it means to never chase, to never beg, to never explain, to live in quiet strength, to make silence your superpower. Because silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of control. And that presence is who you were always meant to be. Hey warrior, pause for a moment. Breathe. You've walked through silence and storm. You've faced the noise of the world and the noise inside your own head. You've learned that power isn't about domination, it's about direction. You've learned that strength isn't about reaction, it's about restraint. You've learned that peace isn't found in others' approval, it's found in presence. This journey wasn't about changing who you are, it was about remembering who you've always been, because you were never weak. You were simply scattered, chasing validation, explaining your worth, begging to be understood. But when you turned inward, when you sat in silence long enough to hear your own thoughts, you began to remember. You already have everything you were seeking. You didn't need to chase them. You needed to return to you. The world tells you to speak louder, to prove yourself, to show everyone who you are. But the Stoic knows true power doesn't shout. It radiates. It's not found in the argument, it's found in the calm that refuses to enter it. It's not found in